FNF has put together an excellent lineup of speakers today. So they are journalists, editors, newsroom leaders, all of whom are doing some really incredible, bold reporting at this extraordinary moment for journalism and for democracy at large. Before we start, could I ask each of the panelists to give just a brief introduction of who you are, where you work, and what the focus of your work is? Maybe in the order that you're appearing on my screen now. So Gemma, Celine, Camille, Mike, then Marijo.
Hi, I'm Gemma Mendoza. I am head for digital strategy at Rappler and previously led the fact check team, but now I'm mostly looking at the digital landscape and how that's shaping journalism. In that capacity, I lead the Rappler's research and efforts in relation to misinformation and disinformation in the digital space.
I'm Celine. I'm a writer and editor for Vera Files. So we are a nonprofit media organization that does in-depth reporting, which includes fact-checking. So I lead the team that does fact-checking of online mis and disinformation, and we do it as a third-party fact-checking partner of Facebook.
Hello, I'm Camille. I lead the newsroom for philstar.com, which is a digital counterpart of the Philippine Star, the broadsheet. But we do have a different hierarchy and a different company. And so we also have, I run the day-to-day operations of the newsroom and also direct the general editorial strategy. I handle everything from not just news, but also lifestyle, sports across all sections. And also our reporting on different platforms, social media, video, multimedia. That's my, this is a huge responsibility.
Hi, good morning. Good evening, Matt. I'm Mike Navalio. I'm a reporter for ABS-CBN News. I cover the Justice Beat. This year, unfortunately, it included covering the shutdown of the ABS-CBN.
Hi, good morning, and nice to see you, Matthew. I am Marijo Ramos. I'm covering transport and mobility beats for the Philippine Daily Inquirer. But I've also worked on special reports concerning social justice and human rights.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much again to all of our panelists for being here. So just to kick off the discussion on disinformation, there's been a very interesting debate recently over how to fact check President Duterte's televised late night speeches, and even a question of whether it should be streamed at all. What do you think the best way to approach this is? Balancing the obvious newsworthiness of the chief executive with the fact that these speeches have been littered with falsehoods. Anyone can just jump in.
Very challenging question, actually, I think, among journalists. The question of whether you even report it is something I think that every newsroom is grappling with, because the reality is this: the chief executive of the land, and there are things he says, and things he says are policy. So that's really something that's a very difficult question, if you ask me. But on the matter of fact checking, it's important that as he says that you annotate. At the very least, you annotate. You need to outrightly label it if it's a falsehood, if it's a lie, if it's misleading, and so on. You cannot just be reporting, and it's very important that you stress that. Like, it's not that you're censoring the president, which was one of the points that was mentioned in that conversation, but it's about calling it out, calling out as it happens, a lie.
I think the gatekeeping function of the media also applies to live coverages, which includes live tweeting. But we have to differentiate between reporting what is said as is and presenting the news, because those are two different things. I think there's a danger in parroting everything that's spoken by government officials, especially those who have a long list of dubious claims. But there's also danger in treating live tweets or live streams as the news itself or the final journalistic output. There has to be room for analysis. And I think we also have to develop a culture of readers or audiences who demands those analysis, which of course would be very difficult for a single journalist assigned to cover a late night coverage or speech to do. So while fact checking in live coverage should be part of standard newsroom practice, I think it should be a team effort. Like on the practical side, assigning 2 to 3 people to work on an event that other newsrooms had been doing here in the Philippines. And this group could create a deeper analysis of the issues at hand later on.
Yeah. For me, I think it's important that the people know when the president and any other people in power, when they're lying, because what they say, especially the president, what he says translates into policy. Let's take, for example, his drug war figures, which since 2016 have been ever changing from 1.8 million to 3 to 7 to 8 million. And it has become the basis for a campaign that has turned into this bloody campaign now that has killed so many lives and affected so many families. So it's important that the people know when he is lying.
I think it's a very tricky decision-making process for the editors as well as the reporter. I do agree that while on the ground, it's very difficult to fact check the president. If you've ever covered the speeches of the president, there's no single flow that the speech could go. It could go anywhere. And so as a reporter, if you're covering it, your priority is to catch everything that he says. So it's really difficult if on the ground you have to do the fact checking. It's different if, say, you're in the comforts of your own home and you have the luxury of playing back what the president said. Then you can go back and then you can freeze what his speech and probably fact check it on the spot. So, I mean, to the credit of reporters covering the president, there is that difficulty. But at the same time, there's also the responsibility for newsrooms, especially the editors, to see if this speech is worth airing live on nationwide TV. I guess we have come to that conclusion because we are in the middle of a pandemic and we're expecting the president, whatever the president says, will have an impact on our daily lives. Is he going to impose a lockdown again, or is it going to be relaxed? So that's what everyone's waiting for. But unfortunately, on both occasions, that's not what we've been hearing. So it's difficult because you cannot predict what the president will say. One journalist was pointing out, what if after you cut off, for example, the president, he says something important, then you miss the opportunity to cover it. So there is that difficult balancing act that's going to happen. What you can do probably is to fact check right after the speech aired, just to remind people that this is what he said, but this is what's really happening on the ground.
So I agree with everything that has been said here. I guess just drawing from our own newsroom experience, we've made that decision, I guess, since even before the 2016 campaign started. We started doing live coverage, live fact checking. It is quite not that it was a difficult decision because we really found no other way to do it. But what we found difficult was operationalizing it. As Mike said, there are many real-time challenges, not just on the ground, but even for digital newsrooms where work in platforms that are ever multiplying. There are also different audiences to respond to or to think about, how to communicate them, how to make the message clearer to them. And now we encounter a president who's as Mike said, he can go touch on different topics, personal, also very offensive slurs in his speeches. And so, of course, at first, in the first years of his administration, we really found it we found it necessary to cover him, to show people that this is the kind of president that we have. This is how he is as a person. And so over time, we've also been learning not just how we can divide resources, but where our people, because we have a smaller newsroom. I think that's the problem also now that even newsrooms that cover national beats are quite small. They really keep it lean. And so it's difficult also to where we're going to allocate our resources. And so, but it's a learning process. And I think now if there's a demand for it, and we're actually seeing that demand, that clamor for this kind of reporting, then this is very, very much encouraging, because it's the kind of motivation that we all need in this very difficult profession.